Right, we're going to learn the functional unit of the nervous system, neuron. Right, first of all, we should understand neuron is it's a cell. Neuron is a specialized cell, and what we learn about the cells, most of the parts of the cells we can find in the neuron. For example, we know that the cell has a nucleus. So this should be the nucleus of the neuron then. And also we know it has a cytoplasm and it has cell membrane. These are the three major components of a cell: nucleus, cytoplasm, and cell membrane. Now cell membrane is slightly changed. They make this kind of a special structure. How to say it, like a star shape or whatever shape. You can see like this kind of a structure, and in the cytoplasm they make a tiny projection like this. And these all projections ended up in one unit, and then it communicates with the cytoplasm. So we can see lots of these kind of cytoplasmic projections, and they ended up in one and then connect to the cytoplasm. But there's one projection is quite long. It's going a very long way to make a tail-like a structure, and again it is going to divide at the end like this. So this is the typical structure of neuron, and we can also find second cell. Now neuron is a major cell. There is another cell most of the time closely attached to the neuron. A bit a special case, right? So it's a one cell neuron, but some of the neurons, like many neurons, another type of cells closely attaching with this neuron. Let's say this cell is, we can draw like this. And another cell is coming like this. Another cell is coming like this. So here we can see three cells which is wrapped around this long tail of the neuron. Okay, we use a special name for this long tail. We call it axon. So if we look cross section like this here, how it actually attached, this is the axon. This is the axon, and around the axon, this cell is wrapped like this. Now you see the appearance in the cross section. Axon is a white color one, or a circle, and the yellow color cell surrounded by this is called the other cell. And we are not much at this level interested to know about many different parts, but it is called a Schwann cell. So let's see the other things. This is nucleus, cytoplasm, and cell membrane. Okay, these projection has also special name. They are called dendrites. So these projections are called dendrites, and sometimes some textbook prefer to write this small one projections which is branching at the end to make the dendrites. That's a dendron. Right, now if we take this cell as a single cell, and how this cell communicate with the other cells, it's like this. This end, let's say this is the starting point, the start. So when this end communicate with another, let's say receptor or maybe another cell, then it is ending up at this point. So then they are capable of transmit a tiny current from this end to this end, and it is called nerve impulse. Nerve impulse. And how it really travels in this neuron, it is basically if it is start from this end, it is going through this cell membrane. Cell membrane, on using the cell membrane, it is going through neurons to the other end, like this. So we are not going to learn too much detail about how it produced and how it can transport, how it can traverse this current. Like these things are not in our level of learning, but we can understand it is coming from this end, so we can call it a cell body, and ended up at the end of the axon. This is axonal end, so it is ended up axonal end. So if we have another neuron in the front, that neuron can communicate with this neuron. This neuron can communicate with another neuron. So they can make a long a connection by aligning many neurons to make a long pathway. And if this axon is quite long, they can also bring signal, let's say from the brain. If the brain has these cell bodies in the brain, and the axon is mostly going to the heart, then the axon is very long. So if this is not possible in certain cases, several cells line up to make the pathway. If it is too long, several cells join together to make the pathway. And certain cases, the many cells join together to make the pathway. Right, this is the structure of the neuron. Okay, next lesson we're going to learn how actually one communication take place as a one unit, how neurons are organized to make a circuits. Now in this case, there is a question, are there different type of neurons? Now we see a neuron which has this structure, right? This is again another word used actually for this one is called myelin. Myelin is the special lipid and protein which is inside this cytoplasm. Actually, it provides some kind of insulation functions. So Schwann cell has myelin. Myelin is a collection of lipid and protein. So it makes a insulation around the axon. Right, now let's see how this neuron can make a circuit. If they make a circuit, what are the changes of the neurons and how they are different to each other. Right here we can learn this one as under the lesson called a reflex arc. Right, to learn reflex arc, we get another example. If accidentally when we touch a hot surface, really hot surface, like iron or maybe a cooking pot, they are really hot. What is immediate action is we quickly take the hands from the hot surface. Now this action is involuntary again, because we don't have time to think. It is happening very automatically, so that is an involuntary action. Okay, then we're going to see how this really works, right? Let's assume this one is a really hot surface, and when we touch our finger, what is really going to happen at this junction? So let's see if I slightly enlarge the skin. So skin has a layer like this, and there's another layer like this, and we can find small receptors in the first layer and the second layer, mostly in the second layer, right? So these are very thin layer. First layer is very thin. We call it dermis, so epidermis, right? Epidermis, and this layer is called dermis. So under the dermis we can find receptors. So what are receptors? They are very specialized cells. Let's say this one is a receptors. So they are very specialized cells, and these receptors are connected to the neuron. So they are specialized to detect pressure, specialized to detect the heat, specialized to detect the cold, specialized to detect the pain. Then what is going to happen? These receptors can detect the heat, and the receptors are connected to the neurons. So these neurons are called a sensory neuron. Sensory neuron, because they can sense the stimulus changes. Then the sensory neuron has a long axon like this, and it is going like this, and it is ended up here to make the cell body. And again sensory neuron continue its axon like this. Now some prefer to send the first part is a dendrite, because you know the dendrite is mostly getting the signal, and then axon is passing the signal because signal is coming from this way, and some use this as axon, the other one is also axon. That's no big issue at this level to differentiate what is exact the name of this. So we call it axon. Then it is going to the cell body. Cell body is in the middle now because axon is here one part and the other part. Now where does it go? So when you think about the place it goes, so it is going to the spinal cord. So spinal cord we can see like this. That's basically a rough structure of the spinal cord, and this axon, I have to a little bit adjust it. Is coming from this direction, and then it is coming to this place. So if you look the brain and spinal cord real section, we can find two colors. One is a gray color area, other one is a white color area. Why they have a different colors? The spinal cord and the brain consist of billions of neurons, collection of billions of neurons. And the gray area, mostly we can find the cell body. The cell body is located in the gray area. That's why they are mostly a gray color. And the axons are located in the white color area. So axons are white color there. So let's see, this area is a gray area, and this area is a white area. Right now, when the sensory nerve bring the signal to the spinal cord has another neuron. So that neuron, let's see, I'm drawing with the red color. Now that neuron has a, okay, I have to space. So I'm drawing this cell in different color, let's say white color. Okay, this neuron, they don't have a very long axons, but instead they have the dendrites like this, and then it has this the axon is like this. So it has a very short axons and dendrites. And here you can see the white one and the sensory neuron is going to connect at this point. So they have a connection, sensory neurons and the neurons which is located in the spinal cord. So the white color neuron is called a relay neuron. This one is called relay or intermediate neuron. We use both words, relay or intermediate neuron. And the relay and intermediate neurons, again connected to the another neuron. So this is another neuron, and this neuron connect with this relay neuron, and then it has again long axon. Now you see a sensory neuron connect with the relay neuron connect with the motor neuron. This neuron is called motor neuron. So motor neurons connect at the end with the muscles. It connects with the muscles. Right. Another important thing is, if you look this connection, mostly you will see there is a small gap between these connections. Here you see a gap, and here again you see a gap, and here again you see a gap, and even from this level there's a tiny gap. Next lesson we're going to learn about this communication between a neuron and another neuron. So these communications are not physical. They're not physically attached to each other. The neurons are not physically connected to each other. There's a gap in between. Between the gap there's a chemical coordination. So that we'll learn as a different lessons called synapse. These gaps are called synapse. There's a chemical coordination between these gaps. So that's why we have to draw this with a small gap. Now let's see what is going to happen. As soon as the heat energy transfer to the receptors, the heat energy is the stimulus, and this is detected by the receptor. Then this receptor can detect the energy as heat, and then it can create a nerve impulse, and the nerve impulse travels through these sensory neurons to the spinal cord, like this. And spinal cord connect the sensory neuron with the relay neuron, and relay neuron connect with the motor neuron. Then the pathway is this impulses, nerve impulses going to the spinal cord, and then it connect to the relay neuron. Relay neuron communicate with the motor neuron, so it's going to the muscles. Then the muscle contract. After muscle contraction, immediately the hand is taken from the hot object. So here you have learned in this process the brain is not involved. It is not going to the brain, because if you look brain like this and the spinal cord like this, and the communication is from the finger to the hand is like this. So it is coming this way and going to the hand muscles. So brain is not involved for this process. That's why we call reflex arc. And this pathway is called reflex pathway. But once an event is happened, the brain is informed, reported to the brain the event. So I mean, we know that it is a hot object, so the hand is immediately withdrawn from the hot object, then we realize it. But it happened without our control, without our thinking. But later on, the brain is educated. There was a hot surface, and then touched the hot surface. As a result, we have taken the hand back from the surface. Okay, so here important things are uh, we have three different neurons because of the location and also their shapes. So basically the sensory neurons are connected to the receptors and its cell body is not in the spinal cord, and it has a two long axon. Right, I did not make this wrapping, myelin wrapping, because it's complicated in this diagram to add more information. But some neurons, most of the time, they have this myelin wrapping. For example, sensory and motor, at least they have most of the time these small cells wrap around to insulate it because they are quite long. So this one should go to the fingers. This should also come from the fingers. So the nerve impulses should be fast enough. They have this myelin wrapping around it. Okay, then other two neurons like sensory motor neuron and the relay neuron, their cell body is inside the spinal cord, and they can communicate sensory neuron information to the effector. So this, we can say this is the effector then. Contraction of the hand is effector. This is the stimulus, and that's a receptor. And taking hand is the response. So taking hand from this hot surface is the response. I think this is a very good example to learn the coordination, the meaning of coordination, and also the pathway of the neurons, how it works, and also involvement of brain and spinal cord to coordinate these processes. Right, I will add one thing to finish this lessons. Gray, they have a cell body area which is cell body is located. White, axons are located. Axons has white color. Cell body has a gray color. All right, so we can recap the same thing slightly different way with this tiny video, right? Right, you see the person is touching the hot surface, and the hand is taking quickly, hand is quickly take out of the place like this. Yes, it's very fast event. As soon as touch, the nerve impulses travels through the sensory nerves to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord we can find organization of relay neuron and then a motor neuron. Then it travels through the motor neurons to the muscles. Then the muscle contract. Then hand is quickly taken from the hot surface. Okay, so I save this slide, and you can add this onto the reflex arc lesson after the lesson. Alright, so what are the things you need to remember to answer exam question in this case, like this? Right, can you find the answer for this question? The image below shows a cell from the nervous system. The cell forms part of a reflex arc. An impulse moves from the neuron from Q to P. So it's moving from Q to P. That means this direction. What structures would be found at P and Q? So what is the structure found at P? What is the structure found at Q?
C.
Okay, let's see. Right. Number one is if we identify this neuron, it's easy. How we identify? If the cell body is always in the middle, like this, cell body is located in the middle. So cell body is located in the middle in the sensory neuron. That is located in the sensory neuron. Now we learn sensory neuron has two connections. One is if it is starting from this end, sensory neuron is connected to the receptors. And then from the receptors, so according to this figure, the nerve impulses is going Q to P. So receptors detect the energy level, the heat or whatever, the stimulus, and then it goes through the sensory nerve to the other end. Other end is next neuron located in the spinal cord. That is a relay neuron or intermediate neuron. Then the relay neuron is connected to the motor neuron. And then the motor neuron, the axon is running like this to the muscles. So this part usually this represents the spinal cord. Here's the spinal cord. So we need to remember starting point is a receptor. So receptors are the structures which can detect the signal, and receptors are connected to the sensory nerve. So this location of the cell body is very important to identify the type of neuron. So when first thing we did, we identify the type of neuron. The type of neuron is a sensory neuron. Then after that we use our knowledge to find what is the starting point and what is the end point. For that it is also important this information, an impulse move along the neurons from Q to P. So it is going from Q to P this direction. Then that information help us to locate what is the starting point, what is the end point. The starting point is the receptor is here. The end point we have a relay neuron. So then correct answer is Q is receptor, P is a relay neuron. So the correct answer is B. So it is very important to clearly remember the reflex arc part, the reflex pathway. because in the exam you are tested like this kind of a questions. If you don't know the shape of the neurons, if you don't know the direction of the nerve impulse, if you don't know what is starting and end the structures of neurons, then it's hard to give a good answer. Right, there is another question. Uh, that is a structured question. Here you can see the diagram shows a cell from the human nervous system. Name the structure, label A. Then again, it is important to know the basic parts of the neurons. A is a nucleus, and we can see the B is the axon. Draw an arrow on the diagram to show the direction of nerve impulse. So nerve impulse is always generated from the cell body, and then it's going through the axon. So it should be this direction. Describe the role of this neuron in a simple reflex arc. Okay, again we should identify what is the type of neuron. Then only we can say its exact function in the reflex arc. So out of these three neurons, which one do you think this neuron? Which one is which type of neuron is this? So sensory neuron is this. It has this kind of a shape. This is a sensory neuron. I think we have to join again for the next and last session. After this, it's ending in few seconds. So this is the sensory. And the relay neuron, it has a very short axon like this, and the short dendrite like this.